Okay, well, let's take these last 15 minutes. Amelie's going to give a nutshell presentation on her research on grazing in orchard and vineyard systems, which is a form of silvopasture. All you, Amélie.
Okay.
Perfect.
So I wanted to share today a little bit of some work we've done collectively with various partners in California regarding our grazing in perennial crop systems and some of the science and data coming out of that research. That comes from the work I'll show today is the outcome of about 4 different grad students. So it's really putting it in a nutshell, but extensive work. So I want to set up the context a little bit. We've been working on grazing innovation in California systems for some time now. We started with some work in annual crop system, but very quickly ramped up to work in perennial system just because this is a main opportunity for us in California to do some agroforestry. Grazing can be done during dormancy of resident vegetation or planted cover crop, both in nut crop system, vineyards, and other fruit and nut systems. So a real opportunity in California. We've also been trying through our research to synergize with those peer-to-peer networks that are bubbling up in California. Sonia presented this a few months ago, but we have the nascent California Farm Demonstration Network, and Vivian is also on the call here. Coordinating this network. So we really try to plug in the research away from experimental station on campus, go to the landscape and partner with growers to do some more iterative science and co-learn, and also provide some state-of-the-art data to growers so that they can improve their management, share more about their management, and us in the process valuing some of their knowledge. So we've mostly worked in almond system and vineyards, which is what I'll show today. And I'll start with the vineyards because really this is a practice that has really taken off across our landscape. Here you see 1,000-acre at Bonterra Organic Vineyards being grazed by some wonderful shepherds from Chaos Sheep Outfit. So that's a practice that has really blossomed up in California vineyards. A researcher came to work with us a few years ago, Julie Richaroui from France, and we started to ask farmers, ranchers, shepherds, what is the potential of pushing the boundaries of diversification toward agroforestry and grazing in vineyards? What came out of that research is really some very substantial sustainability and resilience potential, both in terms of grazing as a way to control biomass and weeds, but also reduce fuel and labor inputs. We see at least two mows or herbicides being cut down. A big impetus here in California that came through that survey is really the potential of this practice for wildfire suppression in and around the vineyards, and you can see an example of this reduction of fuel load here around a vineyard as sheep move between different growers' block. We see anecdotal evidence of pest suppression and definitely an ability of farmers and growers in our landscape to diversify and build up their portfolio effects so that there's a real resilience building potential here. In terms of a more technical management perspective, grazing in vineyard is a tool that is appreciated for cover crop termination, residue management, nutrient cycling, but also for growers that are interested in centering their management around soil biodiversity and functions. And in fact, we see from our growers, that's a quote from Ryan Miller at Full Belly Farm. They do appreciate those beautiful regenerative and symbiotic stories. And you see the difference here between, this is an experiment we're conducting now, and you see the difference between a grazed pasture and a mowed pasture and a mowed cover. And you can appreciate here the main differences there might be in terms of plant, soil, microbes, biomass continuum. So we started to study this back in 2018 with a PhD student, Kelsey Brewer, who was interested in looking at these practice in terms of a climate mitigation practice. So how much carbon can we sequester by grazing sheep in vineyards? And kind of the idea was to get this on the book with the state so that we can get an incentive program going. There's a lot going on when you start grazing in an orchard or in a vineyards. You've got trampling of the biomass and a plant community response to grazing. We see residue transformation from biomass to dung and urine. We see potential shift in soil structure, but most importantly, we see a flush of resources to the root systems in yummy carbon entering the soil food web. So a soil that is really much alive, well-fed, and vibrant. And so what Kelsey showed in his PhD thesis is that long-term grazing in vineyards actually stimulate the flux of carbon from the plant to the soil, to the microbes, to the minerals. And what that does is that it increases the carbon storage in the soil. And it's not just broad carbon storage, it's carbon that is protected onto minerals, and that's a carbon that actually sticks around. So there's true sequestration as we understand it today. So really grazing is a carbon sequestering practice. It's coming up across the literature, and we've been able to show that in various papers, and it's making its way through the policy landscape. So now we ramped up our investigation and wanted to go broader than soil and carbon. And so we received funding from Western SOAR in 2022 to monitor 49 vineyards across California. Half of them are grazed, half of them are ungrazed. And that's the work of Tommy Fenster, a current PhD student in our team. And we're measuring soil ecosystem and soil health outcome, but also biodiversity, disease and weed suppressions, and yield and grape quality, kind of going broader than soil to add data of relevance to grower, and also answer some of the questions that came out from a first initial survey that I presented. We see, again, very consistently increase in soil organic carbon in this research, increase in total soil nitrogen, so general fertility of soils, nutrient turnover with about 42% increase in carbon mineralization and nutrient cycling in the soil, and definitely an increase in microbial biomass of about 35%. Looking at biodiversity, plant richness over time is increasing as you graze. I can't show you the biodiversity numbers quite yet because they're not ready, but we do feel that there's an increase in total biodiversity of orchards as well. We see no negative changes across those 49 vineyards in terms of soil compaction, which is very much a worry from growers. We do not see any improvement or trade-off for water infiltration and water holding capacity, aggregation, salinity, and no impacts of dormant season grazing in vineyards on yields and other relevant berry quality metrics. So those were major concerns from growers that this work is tackling and that we hope will help because it's integrated with those peer-to-peer network to increase adoption of those practices across the landscape. We see very similar trends and results in our nut crop systems. I want to show you quickly some work done by Krista Marshall, a master's student in our team. She graduated, sorry. We sampled across 12 different orchards, almond orchards that were on a similar soil type here in Yolo County, and created a management gradient across some of the networks, the grower networks that are available. And that went from no soil cover at all to a full agroforestry system with grazing and stacked adoption of soil health and diversification principles. We measured in different spatial niches, so both the alley and the tree, section of various soil ecosystem function, going from soil structure to building soil carbon to supporting biodiversity in soils through a variety of indicator. And basically, we arrived to 3 different clusters of orchards. Our first cluster that is orchards with bare soil and just very minimal applications of diversification of soil health building principle. A second cluster of orchards that had winter living cover crops and some mixture, but really a very strong cluster around agroforestry practices where we had grazing and really when you look at the soil, all of those soil indicators, really it was night and day compared to even orchards from cluster B. This is what I want to show you here. Here you see the cluster C, which are the agroforestry sites and their normalized performance across a variety of soil health metrics. And you can see some broad improvement, especially in terms of supplying soil fertility and supporting soil biodiversity. Not that many changes in terms of water supplies and improving soil structure. So something somewhat very similar to some of the results we have in vineyards. So what are we up to now? We're trying to build even more interdisciplinary projects in almond, pistachio, and walnuts. We received recent funding to look at never orange worm suppression potential because when sheep graze, they also graze mummies that have been deposited in the cover. And so they're really a potentially great way to control never orange worm emergence in the spring. So that's our colleague Houston Wilson will be looking at that. We're also looking at food safety through a collaboration with Alda Pires Food Safety and potential for contamination being a major concern. And us, we really want to clarify a little bit more water cycling, but especially continue down to better appraise the soil microbial carbon and nitrogen cycling and try to come up with nitrogen budgets because it's kind of complex to manage nitrogen fertilization in those systems. In the process of doing that research, I think we've really learned a lot about the art of grazing in perennial crop in terms of adapting irrigation practices, in terms of adapting harvest practices, in terms of adapting fertilization practices, mowing, tillage, cover crop species, pest and disease management. And what I'm really excited about is our current collaboration with Leila and at CAF and others at the Resource Conservation District in starting to put this knowledge together into best management practice guides. Vivian and us coordinated the development of a best management practice guide for cover crop in almond. At the time, the grazing research wasn't ready to be part of that best management practice guide, but we're ready to put one out for grazing and vineyards. So we're quite excited about this resource and we'll be reaching out for your input on that guide. So with that, I want to acknowledge some of our partners. There's many more, so that slide doesn't do justice to the great work and partnerships that we've had across the landscape. But it's been fun, and I'm happy to answer any question if there's time. Thanks for listening.